The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. My guest this hour is Dr. Susan Shumsky, and she has, authored 20 books in English, released 36 foreign editions, won 43 book awards, and done 1,300 media appearances. Wow. Dr. Shumsky is joining us to talk about her new book entitled The Inner Light, How India Influenced the Beatles. And joining me now is Dr. Susan Shumsky. And Dr. Susan, welcome back to the X Zone.
Oh, I'm excited to be here with you this evening, Rob. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. It's always a great pleasure. And talking about the Beatles, one of my favorite topics.
Oh, good.
Tell us about your book, The Inner Light.
Yeah, The Inner Light is a book about how India influenced the Beatles' lyrics, the Beatles' music, the Indian instruments, the Indian musicians. And it's a story, but it's told through the songs. So each chapter or section is a song. And I explain how India influenced that song. I mean, obviously, it's only some of the Beatles songs,
Sure.
It's not all of their songs, but the ones that are most influenced by India. Not only the Beatles, but also in their solo careers afterwards.
Really?
Yeah.
Solo careers as well.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write The Inner Light?
Well, as you know, I wrote a memoir, Maharishi and Me Seeking Enlightenment with the Beatles Guru. I'm pointing to it right now. And that particular was about my journey with Maharishi, who was the Beatles guru. And it was about what it was like to live with a spiritual master from India, and what happened when I was there with him, and also what happened with various celebrities who were with him. And it was a really wonderful book. That book itself has won 13 book awards. It's a fantastic book, and it took me a really long time to write. I started writing it in 1998, and it got published in 2018, 20 years later. So it took a very long time. I had to learn a whole different method of writing and all of that. But the book covered some of what happened to the Beatles in India. It covered part of the story, but I wanted to tell the whole story I was really, really yearning to tell the whole story about the Beatles and their relationship with India and what really happened when they were at the ashram and all of these things that have not been reported on. And so I took on this huge task of writing this book, which ended up being 512 pages.
Oh my goodness.
Which ended up having 950 endnotes, which has 130 QR codes, 170 photos. It's like an encyclopedia of how India influenced the Beatles.
When you started the project, did you think it was going to be this big, this intensive?
Not at all. I figured it was like my other books, maybe a couple hundred pages, at most 300, would be like max.
Now, you yourself lived in an ashram, am I correct?
I was with Maharishi in his various ashrams for 2 decades, and I was on his personal staff for 6 years. And that was in Europe when I was with him on his personal staff.
What was it like?
Well, being around Maharishi was really an amazing experience, and I can see why the Beatles were so attracted to him, because we all were. He's a very charismatic figure, extremely happy, laughing, making jokes, giggling all the time. The press called him the giggling guru, and he he was always making cracking jokes, but mainly he just exuded this love vibration. You felt when you were near him as if you were just feeling this love pouring over you, and the spiritual kind of waves of spiritual lifting and inspiration that you would experience when you were with him. So those of us who are on staff are always competing to try to get close to him.
Unbelievable. How did the Beatles turn Western culture upside down and bring Indian philosophy to the West?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. When Maharishi first came to the West, it was like around 1963 or so.
Mm-hmm.
There was in the dictionary, in the English dictionary, there was no mantra, there was no yoga, there was no karma, there was there was none of these terms that are so common now. They just didn't exist. And Maharishi, with a little help from his friends, the Beatles, made these into household words. So it actually changed the entire culture. Now we have yoga studios on every corner. We have martial arts studios. We have organic foods everywhere. The proliferation of Indian philosophy and culture has pervaded the West to such a huge degree. And it all started with, I mean, I can't say it started with Maharishi, because Yogananda had come to the West, Vivekananda had come to the West in the early 20th century, but they didn't have the kind of impact that Maharishi had. Maharishi actually, during his lifetime, he trained 40,000 teachers, and those teachers taught 6 million people to practice transcendental meditation. And there's still people are still teaching transcendental meditation to this day.
I have a bit of a problem, understanding the great influence that India has had on the Western culture, because when you look at Indian civilization and how they live, it's totally different from how we live over here in the West.
Well, yes, that's true to some degree. Actually, Western culture has incredibly influenced India, because India didn't used to be like the Silicon Valley of Asia. It didn't used to be what it is now. India, when I was there first in 1970, it was a very simple, shall we say, kind of civilization. It didn't have all the modern conveniences that we have over here, but it's changed a lot. It's really changed a lot.
But why?
Because Indians want to be Westerners. That's why they wanted to be prosperous, and they wanted to, and they're very intelligent. Obviously, they're the ones that always win all the spelling bees, and they're incredibly intelligent people. So that's why they were attracted to tech, electronics and computers.
Let's turn that question around. Why are Westerners so interested and so drawn in by the Maharishi and transcendental meditation?
Yeah, I think that, well, it was the time. It was in the 1960s. There was the whole, we were changing the world. We were pioneers it was a spiritual revolution that was changing the world. And the Beatles were also flower children. They were part of this kind of hippie society that I was a part of. I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was a flower child. We wanted it, the war, really, that Vietnam War really propelled us to be anti-war and to make love, not war, and all the things that we were really interested in experiencing higher consciousness and expanded awareness. And at that time, our gurus were Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who later became Ram Dass. And they wrote a book called The Psychedelic Experience. And the psychedelic experience was, it was like how to take an LSD trip. It was based upon the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So it had a tremendous influence. And in fact, when John Lennon found that book and read it, he read it all in one sitting. He was so enthralled by it. And then immediately he wrote that song, Tomorrow Never Knows, which quotes verbatim the psychedelic experience, that book that was written by Leary and Alpert. And that's how their psychedelic years began.
Cool. How did the Beatles get involved with TM as well as the Maharishi? What's the story behind that?
Well, it was George's wife, Patty Boyd. She saw a very small ad, classified ad in the Times of London. And it was an ad for transcendental meditation, go to this lecture. So she went with her girlfriend, and they learned TM, and they really loved it. They had great experiences. So Patty told George about it, and George said, "Oh, I want my own mantra." So then when they found out that Maharishi was coming to London to speak on August 24th, 1967, at the London Park Hilton Hotel, George got tickets for all the Beatles, and they went, and they were very impressed with Maharishi, and they met him afterwards. The only Beatle that was missing was Ringo, because he was in the hospital with his wife Maureen, who was having a baby at the time. But the other three Beatles met with Maharishi, and they said to him, "We're seeking a highly spiritual experience, and we tried LSD, and that didn't work. It didn't take us there." And Maharishi said to them, "Well, it's laudable that the youth want to have a spiritual experience, but drugs are not the way. And you should learn TM from one of my teachers in London and then become TM teachers." And then they said, "No, we want to learn from you." And George said, "Got any mantras? Want to learn from you." So,
all right, we're going to take a little bit of a break here. We're going to have a
okay.
cliffhanger. So please stand by. Susan Shumsky is our guest, Exo Nation. And the website that we would like to promote tonight is drsusan.org. And we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. So when we last left Dr. Shumsky, we were talking about the Beatles going to meet the Maharishi in London. Ringo wasn't there. He was in the hospital with his wife with the birth of their child. And the Maharishi basically suggested that the Beatles find a teacher in London, and George says, "No, we want you. I want my own mantras." And take it from there, Dr. Susan.
Yeah, George says that he told Maharishi, "Got any mantras?" I don't know if that's really true, but that's
Right.
what George said. But it's like George. Probably he did say something like that. So Maharishi said, "Okay, I'm going to Bangor, North Wales tomorrow. You can come on the train with me. I'll be teaching a retreat for 10 days up there." So the Beatles actually went on the train with Maharishi and took public transportation and went up to North Wales, and they learned TM from Maharishi the next day. And then the day after that, unfortunately, Brian Epstein died. So the Beatles had to, was their manager.
Yeah.
And they had to return to London that day. So they returned.
So what do you learn in transcendental meditation?
Well, it involves using a mantra. And so it's just a method of relaxing the mind and getting quiet and still by repeating this mantra and letting it go, really.
Can you give us an example of a mantra?
A mantra would be something like maybe Rama,
Just the word Rama?
Yeah, Rama would be a mantra.
So what would you do? Say Rama, Rama?
Yeah, you would say
Rama?
it in your mind. You wouldn't repeat it out loud. You say it in your mind, for example.
So when you're saying this mantra, what happens?
Well, if you follow the instructions, it takes you into a very quiet state. The mind gets really quiet and settled down to a state of peacefulness. And you feel expanded awareness. You feel like you are one with the universe. You feel bliss consciousness, unbounded awareness, expansion. And you feel very, very settled, very, very peaceful and content. It's perfect contentment and peacefulness.
What are the mechanics behind it? How does it work? if we're just thinking about a word like Rama,
Yeah.
how does this trigger all these psychological events that take place?
I don't know how it does that. All I know is that it does work. That TM is a viable meditation practice that has been scientifically verified to have all kinds of beneficial effects, including reducing hypertension and peacefulness, and also even academic performance, even reversing signs of aging. All kinds of things have been beneficial in practicing not only TM, but other forms of meditation.
And nobody knows how it works.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe somebody does.
Oh. Well,
I don't know. What it does is it takes the mind, when you take the mind down to a peaceful state. Okay, so I'll try to explain.
Okay, please.
Mind and body are connected to each other.
Right.
And when you take the mind to a state of peacefulness, the body settles down, the metabolism gets quiet and still, and the body is very deeply relaxed. Yet consciousness remains. It's not like when you're asleep. It's a different state of consciousness. There, in India, they talk about several states of consciousness. They talk about the waking state, the dreaming state, the deep sleep state, and then the transcendental state, which they call turiya, meaning fourth, the fourth state of consciousness. And that fourth state of consciousness is that state of bliss consciousness or expanded awareness that happens when you are in deep meditation. And so when the mind settles down, the body settles down, and the body gets into this state of wellness, of health and wellness and well-being. That's the only way I can really describe it, not being a scientist.
But you do practice TM. So
no, I don't practice TM. I did practice TM from 1967 to 1989. And then I found another meditation technique that I teach that I like better. And it's called Divine Revelation. And my first book was called Divine Revelation.
That's why I asked you, because you must, I remember you talking about you using TM in the past.
I did.
And
I love TM. It's a great meditation technique. In fact, I even recommend people to do it.
Isn't meditation no matter what kind of technique it is?
No, it's different. I mean, different techniques are different.
All right. What is different between your technique that you're using now and that you teach compared to the TM?
Right. Okay. So the TM is a use of mantra. You use a mantra.
Right. And we use the word Rama in our example.
Yeah, in our example, that's not one of the TM mantras, but it is a mantra from India. Rama is a mantra. And in my technique, Divine Revelation, there's no mantra involved. It's just about relaxing, getting quiet, settling down, and connecting directly with spirit with a capital S, and receiving inspiration, healing, and wisdom from within. It's about connecting with divine beings, beings of light, deities, angels, archangels, also is part of what I teach with Divine Revelation. So I call it Divine Revelation because it's about receiving divine revelations.
Okay. Prior to TM and the other methods that are used to meditate, was meditation ever used in the West, or was this something strictly that was brought over by the Maharishi and other gurus going back to the 60s?
That's a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked that. Yeah, the thing is that in the Christian tradition, they have done a kind of contemplative prayer. They've used prayer in a way that is like meditation, and undoubtedly the monks and nuns in monasteries have been meditating for throughout the centuries.
Right.
And but the Indian form of meditation, well, I think it was first brought over by Vivekananda between the 19th and 20th century. He came over to the West and began to teach yoga, yoga meaning union, divine union of individual spirit with universal spirit. And then Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, came over to the West and settled in America. And he wrote a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. And that was very, very popular. It's still an incredibly popular book. And that was a book that was George Harrison's favorite book that he used to give out to everyone.
Really?
He used to hand out copies of Autobiography of a Yogi to everyone. In fact, so did Elvis.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, Elvis Presley. There were a couple books that were his favorites. One was Autobiography of a Yogi, and another one was called The Impersonal Life, which is a New Thought spiritual book. It was published by DeVores and Company.
Speaking about the Beatles, what is the meaning of the song Revolution?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. So Revolution is about something called the Maharishi effect. So Maharishi used to always say, in order for the forest to be green, the trees must be green. In order for the world to be at peace, the individuals must be at peace. His idea was that if a certain percentage of the population would practice meditation, we could create a peaceful world. And in fact, he proved it. He tried to prove it scientifically. What he did was he sent people, groups of meditators, to crime-ridden areas and to war-torn areas. And then they would do statistical analyses, and they found out that when people meditated together in these large groups, the crime rate would go down, the war would subside, and there would be greater harmony in the atmosphere because people were meditating. And I thought, because I was, grew up in the Cold War and everything, and we were all terrified that an atom bomb was going to fall on our head.
Yeah.
We were very attracted to this idea of creating world peace. I was so attracted to it because when I was a child, every birthday, every wishing star, every candle, anything that I would wish on, I always wished for world peace. So when there was this monk who come over to the West telling us that we can have peace and harmony and create world peace through meditation, that was right up my alley. So same with the Beatles. And this idea of you're going to change the institution, you better change your mind instead. I'll just read some of the lyrics from Revolution. You say you'll change the Constitution. We all want to change your head. You tell me it's the institution. You better free your mind instead. That was exactly what Maharishi was telling them and telling all of us, that the only way we could have world peace was not through treaties, not through changing institutions, but by teaching as many people as possible to meditate and have them practice it.
What was it like the first time you met the Maharishi?
It was weird.
Really?
Okay, so the first time I met him was September 1967 when he came to Los Angeles to give a lecture. So I was standing online with all these other people who had expensive flowers that they'd gotten from flower shops that they were going to hand to him and offer to him. And I had my wilting flowers that I had picked on the way there, and I was clutching onto them, and I was dressed completely ridiculous. I had my granny glasses and my wild feral hair and my hairy underarms and hairy legs and my sandals and my crappy dress that I got at the junk store that was hanging off of me. And I'm standing there clutching my flowers, and he's going down the line of people and booing and cooing and billing to everyone, and Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev, Jai Gurudev to everyone. And he's walking and not stopping to talk to anyone, just walking, Jai Gurudev. And everyone's handing him flowers, and I'm getting more and more nervous and tense, and I'm sweating. And then he comes to me and he stops. First time he stops, looks me up, looks me down, looks me up, looks me down, sneers at me, gives me a surly look.
Yeah.
And then he grabs the wildflowers and walks on. And he says Jai Gurudev. And I was like, oh, Jai Gurudev. It was a mess. But I have to say that Yogananda, when he first met his guru, it was pretty bad for him too. That was sort of another awful experience.
So if this was your first impression with the Maharishi, how did you end up working for him?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm glutton for punishment. It must be. I don't know.
How did you get the job?
No, the reason why I went there is because I had such amazing experiences with meditation. It healed me. I had taken LSD and I was a hot mess after taking LSD a few times. And I was actually psychotic. I had a psychotic break from that. And meditation completely cured me of that.
Really? Eh?
So quickly. It changed me so profoundly. And I immediately wanted to become a teacher. So that's why I kept applying again and again and again to become a TM teacher. And they kept rejecting me, say, oh, you're too young, you're too young, you're too young. Eventually, I went to India and became a teacher of TM and very devoted to it. And so not too long after that, I asked Maharishi if I could join his international staff. And he said, yes.
Did he remember you by any chance?
Oh, from that first time you saw me?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Hey, Susan,
by then, I didn't look like a wild hippie, you know. I changed.
You know, when you were describing yourself, I could just imagine it. You and I've got to take a break. Please stand by, my dear friend. Exonation, Dr. Susan Shumsky is our very special guest, drsusan.org. We'll be back after this break. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. Dr. Susan Shumsky is our guest. Dr. Susan, that's drsusan.org. I understand you can actually tell us who Dear Prudence and Bungalow Bill actually were.
Yeah, Dear Prudence is Prudence Farrow. That's Mia Farrow's sister.
Right.
They went to the same course in India as the Beatles. They were there at the same time as the Beatles were there. And Prudence, Mia Farrow is a famous actress.
Sure.
She won Golden Globe. She's, you know, obviously she was
married to
baby.
She was married to Woody Allen.
Yeah, and married to Frank Sinatra before that. So they came to India with Maharishi, actually. They flew on the plane with him in 1968, early January 68. And Mia learned TM from Maharishi on the way to India. Prudence had been practicing for a couple years before that. And it had completely changed her life. It was a similar story to mine, only hers was more drastic. She was an addict. She had alcohol addiction, and she had taken so many drugs, and she had really a psychotic break herself. And meditation saved her life. She went to India and she was very, very serious about meditation. You know, Mia just wanted to kind of hang out and read books and stuff.
Right.
But Prudence wanted to stay in her room all the time, didn't want to come out, wanted to meditate day and night. And unfortunately, she kind of went over the cliff. She meditated a little too much, too extreme, and ended up having a psychotic break there in India, right there. And at the time, Maharishi was very concerned about her, and he asked that John and George, who were staying in the same complex, that they look after her and look in on her. So John wrote that song, Dear Prudence, won't you come out to play, see a brand new day? You know, the whole idea was he wanted to get her out of her room. So they were trying to do that, not very successfully. But eventually Maharishi took over, and she was taken to Maharishi's bungalow every day. And Maharishi had her do yoga exercises in the corner. And if her mind was wandering, he would tap, 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 and just get her to continue. And eventually it really didn't take very long. She completely was cured, and very happy ending for her. She ended up having a wonderful family. She's a Sanskrit scholar. She teaches Sanskrit. She teaches yoga. And she's had a really wonderful life.
All right. Now, who's Bungalow Bill?
Well, you know, hey, Bungalow Bill, what did you kill? So that song is about a man named Rick Cook. His mother, Nancy Cook de Herrera, was at the ashram taking the class. She was a TM teacher, and Rick came to visit her, but he came mainly to go hunting. He was a hunter. So he went on a safari with his mother, Nancy. They both went on the safari together, and they killed the tiger.
Oh.
And when they were done killing the tiger, they came back to the ashram to tell of their exploits to the vegetarian Hindu yogi to tell him about their tiger kill. He wasn't too impressed with it.
Can't blame him.
And John Lennon happened to be in the room when they came back to tell Maharishi about killing the tiger. And John Lennon said to Rick, well, isn't that a bit life destructive? And the reason he said, isn't that a bit life destructive, is because Maharishi used to always talk about life destructive actions, life damaging actions, life supporting actions, life promoting actions. He would talk about the laws of nature. He would talk about following natural law and being in touch with the laws of nature. So the song Bungalow Bill came out of that. Yeah. And also the songs that Paul and John wrote about nature, Mother Nature's son and child of nature.
I understand that the Maharishi also made some accurate predictions about the Beatles.
Well, yes. Here's some things that Maharishi said about the Beatles. He said that Ringo always goes by feeling and heart. And basically he's the best meditator, that he was always in meditation, going by feeling and heart. But as for the other Beatles, too much brain is in the way. He said George is the most advanced Beatle, and this is his last lifetime. And he said John has many more lifetimes to go, and he should not give in to his obsession with women, or it will ruin him. And he also told the Beatles that if they don't continue doing their meditation practice, their band will break up.
But John's obsession with women, didn't John settle down, and wasn't he totally devoted to Yoko Ono?
Yes. And became a heroin addict in the process.
Yeah, all right. So I think that we can scratch that prediction from the yogi as being, the Maharishi as being not accurate, because he did stay with Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono changed his life, and he was very, very dedicated to her and the family that they were able to bring forth.
Yeah, different people have different ideas about.
I guess. So why did John and George leave India in a huff?
Well, there were several reasons. One reason is because Maharishi promised John and George, who were the only Beatles left by then. Ringo had left after 9 days, and Paul had left after about a month, 5 weeks. But John and George stayed for a couple months, and Maharishi promised them that they could do this, that he would give them exclusive rights to film him and to do a documentary about transcendental meditation and about Maharishi's guru, Brahmananda Saraswati. And so they had these exclusive rights, supposedly, and Neil Aspinall came to India to make the contract on that. But what happened was, after Neil left, all of a sudden, out of the blue, Charlie Lutz, who was the head of the TM organization in the States, he arrived in Rishikesh in India with a signed contract, a lawyer and a signed contract for 4-star productions to have exclusive rights to film Maharishi for the next 5 years.
Wow.
And then what happened was, early morning, John is in his bungalow. He opens the door to his bungalow and looks out into the courtyard, and he sees a cameraman and he sees a director who yells, "Action!" Well, this was the 4-Star Productions crew who had arrived in Rishikesh, and they were filming the Beatles without their consent.
Oh,
So
brother.
John and George got very angry. They refused to leave their bungalow. They would not go to the lecture hall where the lights and the cameras were set up. And very soon after that, they left. And that wasn't the only reason, though. There was another reason.
What was
They
the other
found
reason?
out that Maharishi had made a pass at one of the girls who was at the ashram.
So it looks like the Maharishi used to use his influence not only in transcendental meditation, but in transcendental penetration.
That's good, Rob. Transcendental penetration.
You can use it. You
That's
can use it
very
with,
good, yeah.
with my company. You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Dr. Susan Shumsky is my special guest. Her website, drsusan.org. We'll be right back as we wrap up this hour. So whatever you do, don't go away. Dr. Susan Shumsky is my guest, and we're talking about transcendental meditation. We're talking about the Beatles. We're talking about TM to TP, and we're talking about her new book, The Inner Light. Her website is drsusan.org. First of all, Susan, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a great pleasure talking to you, and congratulations on your new book, my friend.
Well, thank you.
Did the Beatles ever reconcile with the Maharishi?
They tried. John tried. Okay, so Maharishi was in Rishikesh in December of 1969. And John and Yoko happened to go to Delhi at that time. You can check on it. They were there. And they sent a telegram to Maharishi. And Maharishi was sitting in his meeting room with a few people. They were talking about where they would hold the next course, TM course, because the ashram was much too small and they were getting huge numbers of people to start coming to become teachers of TM. And all of a sudden, in the middle of that meeting, the secretary burst in and said, "Maharishi, I have a very important telegram for you." And Maharishi said, "What it is?" And the secretary said, "It's from John Lennon." And Maharishi said, "Who?" And she said, "John Lennon." He said, "Who?" She said, "John Lennon, who was with the Beatles." And Maharishi looked down and looked at her and said, "I do not know a John Lennon."
Wow.
And then with George tried several times to come and see Maharishi and tried to reconcile. And he wanted to apologize for the problems that the Beatles had caused Maharishi. So he kept calling. And Connie Larsson, who I know, who's from Sweden, who was Maharishi's secretary at that time in the 1970s, he said that George called him, that George Harrison called at least 4 times. And every time Maharishi wouldn't talk to him. And one of the times he said, "Tell him that he's wasting his time with that Krishna organization. And he should do tapas, meaning do austerities, and practice his meditation for a year, and then he can come back to me." But he never let him come back.
But what problems had the Beatles caused for the Maharishi?
They didn't really cause problems. After the Beatles left, Maharishi was more popular than ever.
But
he
didn't
became
you
incredibly famous?
Yeah, that's what I believed. But when you said that George Harrison was calling up the Maharishi to apologize for the problems that the Beatles had caused the Maharishi,
because of the fact that they walked out on him and they publicly said that he wasn't he wasn't what he was supposed to be. They publicly denounced him. John did.
So how long were the Beatles involved with the Krishna organization?
Yeah, well, John was involved very briefly. He allowed Swami Prabhupada, the founder of the Krishna, Hare Krishnas, to stay at his home in Tittenhurst, and several of the Krishnas stayed there for a little while, for a month or two. But George was quite involved with it, probably until his death. He was a devotee of Krishna, definitely. He wasn't really involved with the organization after a while, but he signed the lease for their temple at Bury Place in London. And he also gave them the Bhaktivedanta huge manor house that was just outside London. And that was a gift from George. So, yeah, he supported them big time.
We're running out of time very fast, but I would like to know some of the shocking revelations that you reveal in your book.
Well, probably the most shocking revelations is about the women that Maharishi had sex with.
Yeah, so that's where we're talking from transcendental meditation to transcendental penetration.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of that. There's a lot of shocking revelations.
Really, yeah.
About what really happened. People don't know. They think, oh, well, what people think is that Mia Farrow, Maharishi maybe made a pass at her, but no, they later no, nothing like that ever happened. Well, it happened. It happened to Mia Farrow, and it happened to several women. I know 15 women personally who either Maharishi made a pass at or he had sex with
them. All that glitters is not gold, I guess. So what's up? What are you going to be doing next, Susan?
Right now, I'm working on these wonderful holistic seminars at sea. Now that the pandemic is winding down, we're winding up on cruise ships again, where I'm producing these wonderful holistic conferences at sea.
Right.
At divinetravels.com. You can find out about them. And these seminars, we bring together a lot of wonderful authors and have a relaxing time on a cruise ship and have a seminar.
And you have a blast at the same time.
Absolutely.
Susan, I want to thank you ever so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success, my friend, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet back here in the X Zone. So until then, happy holidays, Susan.
Happy holidays.
The best to you.
And thanks for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to speak with you. Take
care of yourself, my dear friend. X Zone Nation, Dr. Susan Shumsky has been my guest this hour. www.drsusan.org. I think we coined a new phrase there. Transcendental penetration. I like that. I could go so many ways with that right now, but I think we won't, because we have to get ready for our next guest here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Enjoy.